This is the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative podcast, home to the growing business community of trade finance stakeholders and institutions, making this asset class investable. I'm Andy Duckworth, and this podcast we're featuring a new member of the TFDi, Invoice Mate. In a nutshell, Invoice Mate is a blockchain and AI-powered invoice financing suite that helps solve the problems of inefficient invoice processing, which in turn enables access to working capital finance. Muhammad Salman is founder and chief mate of InvoiceMate and is going to tell us more. Hi, Muhammad.
Hi, Andy.
Great to have you with us today. Now, before you tell us more about InvoiceMate, can you tell us a bit about yourself and the journey to where you are today?
Right. So, journey is around entrepreneurial, somewhere around almost 2.5 decades. And but I'll be brief. I'll not go through with all those 2.5 decades. I've been breathing blockchain for 8 years now, based in Dubai. A lot of opportunities to work with the enterprise blockchain solutions from Fortune 100 companies, United Nations bodies, government entities, and so on and so forth. So being in this space, saw a lot of lousy kind of use cases and not so fitting implementations for the blockchain. So that's the journey. First few years were purely on the learning and development side, and then the last 8 years been very heavily focused on bringing blockchain to the mass adoption.
Great. Well, tell us more now about InvoiceMate. We're desperate to know more.
So InvoiceMate again came up 4 years back when I was again seeing that there are not many blockchain implementations which can go to the mass adoption. Coming from a family business background at the SME, I also realized that there are pain points of invoicing and especially invoice financing that blockchain can certainly be helpful to resolve. So that's the story behind InvoiceMate. Actually, we started building up a document management system powered by blockchain, and that was meant for the corporates only. Then we figured out which is the document that needs to be again having more issues, and specifically blockchain and AI can solve that its issues. So when we were searching about a document, we bumped into the invoices. Invoices are the world's most commonly used commercial documents. So every small, medium size, large size entity, they do invoicing, and we all face trouble in invoicing at certain level. Some at reconciliation level between the vendor and the suppliers, vendor and the clients, and some when it comes to the invoice financing. So a lot of frauds happen around invoice financing, and blockchain, we all know, is a technology for the trust to de-risk or to defraud the processes. So that's how we came up with the idea of InvoiceMate.
And tell us a bit about what exactly it does and how it solves a problem, and and how it's going.
All right. So again, first we identified the problems. The problems were around, as I mentioned, mainly about fraud. So it basically hit two sides of the spectrum. One, those who are carrying those invoice receivables, right? The businesses, and especially the small and medium-sized enterprises, because corporates still get the access to the credit through their invoice receivables, discounting, factoring. The banks do it for them. But SMEs, because their invoicing are not having a formalized or efficient systems, and above all, the banks are the risk departments of the banks. They don't trust on this instrument of invoice, especially from the region where we are operating, South Asia and Middle East. The invoicing is centralized, and those centralized invoices are coming through the operating the accounting systems or invoicing systems or the ERPs. They're not bringing the legit kind of credentials, and banks have to do a lot of due diligence on the invoices. So one spectrum, one side of the spectrum is the suffering for the businesses. The other side is the lending institutions of the banks. They miss out doing invoice discounting or factoring to a very big chunk of the business, which is the SME segment. So we are basically coming as a bridge between the two, bringing this infrastructure based on, again, blockchain and AI. Why blockchain? Not for the sake of the buzzword. Why AI? Not against for the sake of the buzzword or riding the hype thing. So both have their own utility. Blockchain is basically serving as single source of truth, fraud identification, and at the same time detection. And AI also brings a lot of efficiency in the fraud detection and prevention. So together they come and form a new tech which we are bringing to this $3.6 trillion global finance market, which is KYI, Know Your Invoice. So know your invoice is the KYC on the invoices. So yeah, that's the first thing which we hear that people, it is a very, like, again, appealing kind of a word, but at the same time, it's a very fitting word for this, like, again, technology. Because what KYI does, it's doing basically the due diligence on the instrument of invoice, then the borrower behind or the issuer of that invoice. So it is a combo of a KYC and the KYT, which is know your transaction. So together we call it KYI, and that's what we are doing with the help of blockchain and AI. And we've been live for last 1 year. As you mentioned, what's happening with InvoiceMate? We've been live for last 1 year and operating in South Asia and Middle East, served around 1,800 businesses. We have processed around more than 110,000 invoices worth 210 million. And important facts are that we have processed $6.2 million worth invoice financing. The best part is zero bad debt. That's the validity of our KYI. So when we are aiming KYI, it's not just for our own platform. We are aiming to become the sum-sub of this world for invoice financing. So SumSub is doing the KYC in different regions, digital KYC, eKYC. So we want to be a eKYI provider to all the invoice financing institutions, whether they are banks, whether they are lending institutions, or fintechs, or also the crypto private credit platforms, those who are also in for the invoice financing these days.
Mohammed, why are you different, and how does InvoiceMate differentiate itself in the global trade space, and how does it contribute to closing the trade finance gap?
Yeah, so the again differentiator is the KYI first of all. Like why we came up with this problem, because again this is a problem not for us as a platform. This is a problem for the whole industry, which I just mentioned that it is a currently $3.6 trillion worth market, and by 2032 it will become $6 trillion global invoice financing market. So the whole industry has this pain point of like handling with the frauds and temper credentials in the invoices, making it more efficient for the lending institutions, for the investors to discount the invoice receivables, to factor those receivables. The main concern is the due diligence on invoice, the legitimacy or the verification of the invoice. So that's where we are addressing. We are not another invoice financing company. We are not other invoice financing tech. We are not SME financing tech, another one. I mean, our focus is on a problem which is basically restricting this industry of invoice financing, and that is the due diligence of on invoices. So this gives us the opportunity not just to bring our own lending efficient and secure, but also we are helping our so-called competitors. Like that's the best differentiator I can bring forward, that we are not only being used by us, we are also being used by our competitors, banks who are doing invoice financing, the lending fintechs, those who are doing invoice financing, or even the crypto platforms doing invoice financing. So we are aiming to be the, again, KYI provider of this industry, and that's our differentiator.
That's a great thing to be able to say, that your competitors are using your own services. Now, you're joining the TFDi. Welcome. And what do you hope to get out of the membership?
Again, it's been one of the premium platforms for the TradeFi, and that's the industry we are basically serving now. So we would love to connect with more and more network members, and at the same time learn from different exchanges. Like this is one of the engagement we are involved at the moment. It's a learning curve as well for us, and at the same time, the joining such a premium platform will also take our message across the network, and that's what again this activity has been doing. So yeah, it's all about building network and at the same time learning from that network so that we can serve them better.
This is the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative podcast, and today we're featuring Muhammad Salman, founder of InvoiceMate. Now, just moving on, can you tell us a bit more about your target audience, your target clients?
Right. So yes, so we started in the Middle East and South Asia, and that's where we will be focusing for another couple of years. I'll give you some numbers. Like I mentioned that the total addressable market for invoice financing at the moment is 3.6 trillion. But what we are aiming, it's a different norm and regulations when it comes to invoice financing country by country. So our current focus is on UAE, Saudi, and Pakistan, where we are operating for last 1 year, and addressing these fraudulent kind of issues of these markets. So every market of invoice financing has its own. 70 to 80% are universal, but 20 to 30% are very like market relevant or geographic relevant. So that's where we have started. It's still again a very big market, underserved by the banks, because again banks in these regions, they have access to T-bills, which is the biggest curse when I should say in banking at the moment, because they earn from T-bills and they don't need to serve the SME sector. And our target market is SMEs. We are an impact project. This is a legacy project for me at the, like again after 25 years of my corporate experience or entrepreneurial experience, I believe I should be doing now some legacy project. So legacy means that you should be bringing some impact to the world. And SME credit enablement, again coming from this SME background, I know how big a issue we have with the SMEs to get the credit, and that's where we are addressing. This region is deprived of SME lending, and we are targeting around 10 million SMEs together. When it comes to Pakistan, UAE, and Saudi combined, it's a 10 million SMEs together, which we are going to serve in next couple of years, and bring this industry standard of KYI first in these three countries, and then scale to the other parts of the world.
We've talked about the geographies there and the size of organizations. Are there any types of corporates or industries you're looking at more closely than others?
Right. We are staying industry agnostic, or sector agnostic. The reason being, we already are geographic focused. So within geographic, we have selected a sector of SME. So there are three categories: micro, SMEs, and then the corporates. So micro we can, but we are currently not focusing on. Corporate, we certainly can. We have the tech to serve, or we have the whole operations to serve corporate, but we are not. We are focusing on the middle tier, which is the SME sector, or SMB, sometimes it's been known as small and medium-sized businesses. So that's where we are targeting. So again, the reason is they've been underserved by the corporate, by the banks, and even from the lending fintechs. So that's going to be our focus, regardless of sector or industry.
And can we talk a little bit about your funding and where you're getting support from?
Right. So initially, for the last 1 year, we've been working as a bridge between the lending institutions and the SME sector, which we are acquiring through supply chains. So we are not doing the invoice financing on our own. So that was not the goal for the first year. The goal for the first year is to connect the SMEs with the lending institutions, which can be the banks, which can be the lending fintechs, which can be the crypto private credit platforms. But moving forward in 2 to 3 months from now, we are coming up with the marketplace, which will help the retail investors, because we are tokenizing the invoices, then fractionalizing it. Let's say there is $100,000 worth invoice. Not many can do the discounting or factoring on that. So we will split it, let's say, in 100 pieces. So now it's not $100,000, it's $1,000 which a retail investor can put their money in and get the yield. So then we will have another channel of liquidity. So our current channel of liquidity comes from the banks, the lending fintechs, the crypto private regulated crypto private platforms, and then there will be the private investors, or sorry, the retail investors who will chip in with the liquidity. About our funding, I bootstrapped the project for the first 3 years of its operations until it reached the product market fit and also got into the serious kind of revenues. Now we have started our own fundraising, and I hope by the end of this Q3, we will wrap up our funding round of $4.9 million. We have almost reached to the $1 billion mark, and progressing very with the good potential capital providers for this journey of fundraising.
Now, InvoiceMate is based around AI and the blockchain, but you said earlier, it's not about just those buzzwords. Can you discuss the role of technology at the moment in your business?
Yeah, so I'll start with the blockchain first. So what happens is that I have to build a scenario here. Like normally you and I are doing, let's say, invoicing. So normally what happens is that both of us are using the systems which are called centralized. Like you may be using some ERP of Oracle or SAP. My organization is using the system of, let's say, Zoho or the Zeros of accounting systems. We both, our accountants or our staff, can change the credentials or tamper the credentials of invoicing at any given stage, right? Because both are of centralized nature. Now, if InvoiceMate is bringing now the decentralized invoicing platforms, for example, even if InvoiceMate's own staff wants to tamper or change the credentials of invoice, it will not be possible because everything is going on chained. So all the steps, starting from the creation of invoice to its reviews, to its approvals, to its payment points, all are getting posted on the blockchain. So it's a decentralized nature of securing the credentials of invoices. It helps in reducing any kind of a potential fraud. And at the same time, it helps the reconciliation, and it helps also in building the credit score against the invoicing data. So all these things help. The blockchain is helping to form a good single source of truth when it comes to invoice financing. AI is something we later understood that we cannot solve the problem of this fraud check or reduction of fraud through just one technology of blockchain. We have to bring efficiency layer, and the efficiency comes through the AI. So I generally say that every technology has a core benefit or value proposition. Blockchain is for the trust, and AI is for the efficiency. To bring efficiency in this quick due diligence or digital verification of invoices, we started coming up with the machine learning algorithms which are doing the checks, fraud checks, for example, and doing it on a very efficient and quick manner. I'll build another scenario that you and I are doing invoicing for last 6 months. I'm always sending you invoice around $20,000. Our average invoicing is around $20,000 between our two companies. Suddenly, I am sending a request for invoice financing to a bank, and I'm doing it on a value of $50,000 or plus. So it's a yellow flag in our system. It's something which normally the manual intervention has to do. Okay, we have to, as a risk department, as a compliance department, we have to go through with the historical record of the two companies. Okay, what is the average invoicing size? With our algorithm, in a split second, we can identify, and the system will do a yellow flag. It could be a proper legit transaction, but still there will be a yellow flag to go and check if the transaction of $50,000 is actually happened, or it's just a collision between you and I or our companies. So this is not just one. There are 20 plus more checks we have enabled to check the potential fraud, to detect them, and of course in the way you can also prevent them. So again, there are number of reasons why and how we are using blockchain and AI, and in a nutshell we call it KYI. So to make a one value proposition, it is helping us to do the quick KYI, know your invoice, for any kind of a invoice receivable due diligence.
Muhammad Salman, founder of InvoiceMate, thank you for speaking to the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative podcast, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Andy, and looking forward for more interactions and bringing value to the trade tech platform from our side as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening today. Please subscribe to stay in the loop for all of our videos and podcasts. Follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's probably the best place to keep in touch with everything we do. And go to tradefinancedistribution.com for everything else you need to know.